Ask Reddit, what are some things people say they want to happen, but would actually be terrible? When people hear I've worked in jails, they joke about 3 hots and a cot, like they want to go to jail. No, you don't. First, it's not 3 hot meals. Breakfast and lunch will be packaged sack meals somewhere between frozen and lukewarm. Dinner is a shitty TV dinner and cold dinner roll. They might have some shitty cookies or something in there. Next, the cot is like a 3 plastic-covered mattress pad on a metal shelf they call a bed. Hundreds of other inmates have slept on the pad and stanked up. They get wiped down after each use, but how much do you trust that facility's janitor or inmate on cleaning duty to do a good job? Other issues. It stinks. People come in super stinky, cause they don't shower every day, toilets just in the open in the cells, and no bathroom fan, and no good overall ventilation because it's a jail. Sound. It could be anything in between, totally silent, and you are left with your thoughts, to crazy people screaming and kicking their door all night. Also tied to bad sleep, your cell will have a fairly bright night light so they can do routine checks. Temperature in the jail will be heavily influenced by the temperature outside. Likely little to no AC in the summer, and just enough heat in the winter to make it tolerable. I am convinced the people who actually want a zombie apocalypse to happen just have fantasies of brutally and indiscriminately killing strangers without any moral consideration. They also assume they'll be survivors and not die immediately, which is much more likely. They also assume the survivors will have a better life than they had before a certain percentage of population just disappeared. People don't understand just how global even our everyday lives are. No government. Civil war as well. Violent revolution. People talk about the French Revolution in glowing terms, but forget about the reign of terror afterward, where for more than a year, absolutely anybody could be targeted for public slaughter for saying the wrong thing or getting on the wrong person's bad side. Real violent revolution is not something you want to live through. And they typically don't end in a stable, functional democracy. A revolutionary leader is more likely to give himself absolute power, with the excuse that they need to reform the government and deal with the remnants of the old regime, and then just stay in power indefinitely. Yep, exactly. People don't realize that the American Revolution was actually a pretty incredible historical anomaly. A violent revolution followed by relative peace and democratic stability is not how things usually end up. This actually makes me wonder, how did the US not go the violent, power-hungry dictator and their inner circle elites route after the revolution? Genuinely, probably the sheer force of George Washington's personality and the true principles of some of the men who were in power back then. For all their flaws, and for sure there were many, most of them truly believed in the democratic experiment they had started and held each other accountable to it. That, and a lot of luck that circumstances were what they were, and that the right people were in the right places at the right time. Washington is called the American Cincinnatus because he was content to serve as general of the Continental Army and retired to farming after the war was finished in 1783. Then he reportedly reluctantly returned to be president in 1787, served his 2 terms, then retired again, even when there was no requirement to do so. His many faults aside, he tried to emulate the best of the past to inspire a better future. Saying, "Please don't grow, stay small like this," about their baby. I played Santa at our company, 1,000 employee party. An older couple came over and had a 4-foot-tall frail girl in a wheelchair. Unexpressive, nonverbal, didn't even see her try to make eye contact. First time meeting her, so I didn't know the backstory. They hauled her out of the wheelchair, and I put her on my knee for some pictures. The mom was talking so much I really couldn't say much to the girl. After the pics, the mom proudly said, "Can you believe she's 26, my little baby? Probably met 200 kids last night." But the one that I will remember is that young lady. I selfishly thought about how great my 2 kids are, and before I could really do anything else, the next kid was shuffling forward. I truly hope those parents were as happy as they appeared, And more, I hope that girl has some kind of peace in her life. I feel like I saw your comment come to life last night. All those book-hot girlies who say they want to be with a crazy, obsessive, possessive, or stalking guy, even going so far as to romanticizing actual criminals. Then, once they end up in a relationship with a guy who's like this, they realize how toxic and sick the guy is and freak out. Not a criminal, but I've experienced those toxic possessive relationships, and it isn't what they think it will be. It's scary and traumatic. Having someone threaten to kill you because they thought you were cheating, or tell you never to talk to other guys is not sexy or swoon-worthy. Let me tell ya. Not can you fix him. Alien species arrival. Given that humans looked down on other humans when they colonized new lands and treated the natives like shit, I don't see why a technologically superior alien race, and if they have FTL, they are technologically superior, wouldn't do the same. Zombie apocalypse. While I appreciate it would spice things up, I would never get to find out how my book series ends, and that is unacceptable. For any mass death/apocalypse fantasy, people always assume they'll survive, forgetting they're far more likely to be one of the overwhelming majority of people who die really fast, defining the event in the first place. Even if they survive initially, so many things that keep us alive and safe are direct products of our modern society. Who's going to manufacture, transport, store, distribute, and prescribe basic medicine? What about clean food and water? Safe heating for cooking and warmth? What keeps that stuff and the people who need it safe? Population explosions happen because we found ways to provide basic needs for more people. Massive amounts of people will die of hunger and diseases that are currently easily treated. Civil war. Most people don't truly understand violence, and this scares me. There are those of us who have witnessed it, and there are those who have committed it, and I don't want to be on either sides again. The downfall of the US. Yes, it will probably happen eventually, and maybe it's even necessary to get things to change here and on the global scale for the better, but the actual process of it is going to be hell. The most vulnerable populations that have the most to gain from what America could be after being rebuilt are also the same populations that will suffer the most during the downfall and rebuilding processes. Build community. Mutual aid and communal support are key. These things are necessary if we want to make it to the other side of it in a better place than we enter it. If the US has a downfall, there would be a scary, scary, scary future for the world. Pax Americana is a very real thing, and the power gap between China/Russia and Europe, let alone the other Asian states, would be insane. It would be a true test post-colonial on how truly better behaved we have become without a massive world power hovering over us with the biggest militarily stick the world has seen if anyone tried wars of conquest again. I've heard people say they wish mosquitoes or spiders would just disappear. I'm allergic to mosquito bites, and spiders scare the ever-loving heck out of me, but I do not want that. They're important to the ecosystem. Ida, I can't respond anymore, but I've answered some questions below. Yes, not all species of mosquitoes are asshats. But the answer to the question was all, in reference to conversations I've heard. Just because something isn't the most important to the ecosystem, or can be replaced, just like every other organism in their impact, does not mean they aren't important. Minimal impact is still impact, which is the point I was trying to make. Humans have fucked up a lot of things, as someone said below, but it doesn't mean we have to continue to do so. Balance, y'all. Religious people believe they would prefer if everyone converted to their religion. But much of the reason people love their religion is the feeling of the being separate from others. As long as there's a group outside of your in-group, they are the lower other. If everyone was uniformly Christian or Jewish or Muslim or Scientologist, etc., nobody would feel chosen or righteous. We can look at lots of European and Middle Eastern history to know what happens. When most people anywhere are the same religion, people get into disagreements about the details, and boom, two sub-religions of the same religion start fighting about whether the founder wore flip-flops or sandals or some other dumb shit, and lots of people die. Civil war. Nobody wins. Literally nobody. I've heard from both sides that they hope something pops off so the other side will finally get their shit pushed in and be destroyed. That's not how it will work at all. Go talk to someone who lived through the Troubles and ask them if they want to go through that again. Because US Civil War Part 2 won't be like Part 1. It won't be battle lines and uniformed armies. It'll be horrific sectarian violence all over. Nobody wants that. Collapse of the housing market so they can finally afford a home. If you couldn't afford it during a good housing market, you absolutely will not afford it in a collapsed housing market. It's not like only the house prices go down and everything else hums along unbothered. Yet, people seem to forget what happened in 2008 and how long the recovery took. Oh, and that is also one of the big reasons we have a housing shortage right now. Virtually no housing was built between 2008 and 2012. Having a cartoonishly large penis. I always hear all the craze about how good blowjobs are, but it barely works for me. With other jobs, it's often just a bit too long to hit the right spot. Also, I have to be so careful during sex, like if I get caught up and put it all the way in, it can hurt them, so like it kinda adds another layer of distraction. Overall, I think the pros somewhat outweigh the cons, but it's really not that amazing compared to average. I mean, women have told me it's nice looking, but it doesn't just magically make you better at sex. They said that it's not really that much better feeling except compared to a cartoonishly small PP. So those of you out there with average-sized dicks, just know you're just as capable of satisfying a woman, unless they have a fetish of it or some shit. I mean, NGL, my confidence and ego were very, very low with women for a while, and the wow it's big was like the one thing that made me feel kinda good about my body at the time. And I mean, for me sex is very personal and emotional, so the only women who ever see it are already somewhat committed, so it's not like I even get laid more from it. What do you think people wish for without realizing the consequences? Feel free to share in the comments below. Please consider subscribing and liking for more daily videos.